Alright, I need to talk about Evan Mobley. It's been eating at my mind since the season started, and it's only eaten at my mind more since the first 5 games of the season. He's been underwhelming. There's really no way around it. Now, it's only 5 games. He can get better. I'm not saying he won't. But a lot of the problems I've had with Mobley since he's entered the NBA are showing up on tape from the games I've watched. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'll never say he's bad. He entered the NBA, immediate positive impact player, immediate elite defensive player. That's so rare for a rookie to do, especially as a big man. He's really good. I'm not saying he's not really good. But there's always something I feel like that's holding him back from maybe reaching the heights that some believe he can. And you look at the first 5 games of the season, and again, he can't get better. He had one good game. It's the Pacers game where he had 33 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, got to the line at a good rate, was 8 for 10 from the stripe. Really good game. Really, I feel like that was the game where we saw the Mobley that a lot of people see the potential for. But the other games, statistically, aren't great. 10 points on 5 for 11 from the field in the season debut. 14 points. He did have 15 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks. Actually has had at least 2 blocks in every game this season. But in a 3-point loss, he was 5 for 12 from the field. Against the Knicks in their first meeting, he had just 6 points on 3 for 9 from the field. And in the second meeting, he was 6 for 12 from the field. A bit better. Really well-rounded game, actually. 14 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. I would say it's pretty solid. And I understand with Mobley, it's about more than numbers. It is. He makes an impact so great on defense. And it's not to say he's bad. I'll never say he's bad. But I do think people need to temper expectations a bit. Is he elite defensively? Yes. I would say he's on an all-time trajectory in terms of his defense. He was all-defense good as a rookie. I believe he should have made an all-defense team. I think he should have won Rookie of the Year. He immediately transformed that Cavs defense. And all of a sudden, the Cavs were a borderline playoff team when many thought they would still be tanking. And in year 2, he was top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year voting. And he is on track to be in that best defensive player in the world conversation, although Victor's kind of made that conversation a bit harder, but I still think Mobley can get there because he's doing stuff at such a young age defensively that is unheard of. And he's truly special on that end of the floor. And he's not a bad offensive player. 15 points per game on 50.8% from the field as a rookie, along with 8.3 rebounds and 2.5 assists. Year 2, 16.2 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 2.8 assists per game on 55.4% from the field. And again, that's good, especially for a player on a playoff team. And I do think, him getting to maybe like 16, 17, 18 points, it's fine because they have Donovan Mitchell, who's an elite scorer, Darius Garland, who I believe is their best player. That's a whole other story for a whole other time when he's playing. So he doesn't need to be that because, again, Mitchell's 25 plus points per game. I think Garland can be a 25 point per game scorer, and he's one of the best playmakers in the world. But I do think that the expectations need to be tempered a bit. It's not all the time I see it, but you will see some Kevin Garnett comparisons. You'll see some Tim Duncan comparisons. And that's just lofty. And I'm not saying everyone's expecting him to be that, but those are things that have been thrown around, and that's the trajectory people think. Like this all NBA level center, that's this one of the best centers in the league. I mentioned in a video about him earlier on the main channel that he is going to be great. I would say he's close to great already, even with this slow start to the season, because of how great he is defensively, and he is a good offensive player. I don't know if he'll ever be a great offensive player. I think he's a good passer. I think he's a high field passer. I think he's a good scorer. Again, 16 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, a good efficiency. It's pretty good for a second-year guy. But I just feel like it's never been in him to reach some of the lofty expectations that people have for him. And I think there's this expectation that he can be one of the 10 best players in the world, one of, the 3 best centers in the world. And that conversation, it's possible he gets there. I think he's extremely talented, so you can't rule it out. But he's never been wired to score. At least not score as like a main option. And I feel like that's a requirement if you want to be a top 10 player in the NBA. That's a requirement if you want to be one of the 3 best bigs in the world. Because there's Jokic, there's Embiid. Those are the top 2. And then Bam, probably the 3rd right now. And then you got guys like Victor and Chet that are in that young player conversation, along with Mobley. And then slightly below them, I'd have like Jalen Duren. The difference is, though, I just don't see it with him being a top 3 big, because Jokic is still going to play, Embiid's still going to play, and then I think Victor's going to be better than him. I think Chet could be better than him offensively, and Chet is special defensively in his own right. And I just don't know. Like, is he really good? Yeah, of course he is. One of the most impressive young bigs to enter the league. But is he ever going to be a 25 point per game scorer? Probably not. He's only averaged, like, I almost said never, but I'm pretty sure he's only averaged 20 points per game once in his entire career. High school, college, NBA. Once. And it kind of reminds me a bit of Wiggins, where you see all this talent on offense. Granted, Wiggins became a great defender in Golden State, but he was an awful defender in Minnesota. But you get Mobley, and you kind of see the same thing on offense. So it's like they kind of float a little bit, feel like they could be doing more. And again, I don't think Mobley's bad. I think he's going to be an all-star. I think he can be all-NBA because of how great he is defensively, and he'll be good enough offensively. But I think he might just be wired to be like a 3rd option. He can be aggressive as a scorer at times, and that's what you want from a 3rd offensive option. Like the Pacers game. He was really good in that Pacers game. He's had games in the past. He had a 38-point game. He looked really good and aggressive. It's just not there all the time. And I think that's why I struggle to put him in like this future MVP, future top 10 player type conversation that some people have him in. And I think those expectations are lofty. I think he can be one of the 20 best players in the world easily. There are guys that aren't main options that are top 20 players in the world. Ben Simmons, whether you want to admit it or not, was not a main scoring option. And when he was in Philly, at his best, he was a top 20 player in the NBA. But it's just a different threshold you have to reach to be top 10. Look at all the top 10 players or guys in that conversation. They're all at least having the ability to be that go-to scorer, and have shown it at some point in their career. Jokic, Embiid, Tatum, LeBron, Curry, Durant, Anthony Davis when he was with New Orleans, and LeBron throughout basically his entire career, Devin Booker, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jimmy Butler. They all have shown I can be that guy that carries an offense, and I also think that's Mobley. I think he's going to be good offensively, like 18, 19 points per game, maybe 20 points per game, but I just think that the offense, I don't know if it'll ever reach its full potential based off his talent and the upside that he shows within his classes. And I just think he's probably going to be Chris Bosh, the Miami version of Chris Bosh on offense, with much superior defense. And that's no knock to Chris Bosh. He was a great defensive player, but Mobley can truly be like one of the best defensive players ever. And I'm not saying that as an insult. Like Chris Bosh with potential to be one of the best defensive players ever is an incredible player, someone that you want on a contender as one of your 3 best guys, and somebody that will make All-Star and All-NBA teams. I think he will win a Defensive Player of the Year. He was my pick going into the season for Defensive Player of the Year this year. And also, fun fact, if he does win Defensive Player of the Year this season, he will be the youngest Defensive Player of the Year ever. And I do see the signs of a potentially great player, just maybe not what people think. And that's okay. You know, he's going to make All-Star teams. He's going to make All-NBA teams. He's going to make All-Defense teams. He might win a few Defensive Player of the Years. But, and the fact that he may not be a 25-plus point per game scorer, that's fine. But I think if you have the expectation of him reaching like these super, super high heights and being like this superstar player, I really think you need to temper those expectations.